Coming up on this Monday edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now, will the Birds, led by this man to my right and general manager Howie Roseman, make one more major move before the start of Eagles training camp on July 23rd, which is quickly approaching on this Monday, July 8th. We're going to take a look at some trade targets and some players who Philadelphia could sign in NFL free agency. Before we run it up, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, because if you're an Eagles fan and you want daily shows that are informative, insightful, entertaining, that involve you, the Eagles fan, this is your go-to spot right here on YouTube. On Sunday's show, we picked up 46 new subscribers on today's program. Can we beat that number? You're a winner at the end of the day because you get great Eagles content from us right here on Eagles Now. And with that, let's start the show. I'm Chase Sr. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day, and we appreciate Roan for making it all possible. If you're looking to add to your wardrobe now that the summer is in full swing and you want some new clothes, Roan is your only answer. I'm wearing their commuter polo right now, and you can get 20% off if you go to roan.com/chatsports and use the code chatsports. We'll put all of that information down below in the comment section and in the description of today's show. As for where the Philadelphia Eagles stand here, about 8 days into July here as we record this show, the Birds have $25.7 million in cap space per over the cap. They're in a good spot. That's 11th in the National Football League right now. And as you look ahead to next year as well, because it's always important to have foresight as a sports organization in life and business, the Eagles have $6.4 million in cap room, which ranks 23rd. Not as good of a situation next year as compared to where the Eagles are positioned right now currently, but you can roll that cap space over. And we know that Howie Roseman is a magician with the cap. You can free up dollars by way of cutting players, trading players, contract restructures, contract extensions, giving players guaranteed money. And Howie Roseman is a wizard in that regard. And we'll see if Philadelphia actually use that financial capital right now, or if they decide to keep it for the NFL trade deadline, or you roll over some of the remaining dollars that Philadelphia has at its disposal. As for the positions of need for the Eagles, when I kind of canvass this roster and think about where the Eagles are at going into the 2024 campaign, safety, linebacker, defensive line, both at defensive tackle or edge, wide receiver 3, and tight end. I do think that Philadelphia has one of the best rosters in the NFL, led by Roseman. I think he's done a really good job of remaking the secondary, adding to some positions, bulking up some depth, bringing in some star talent. And when you do all of that and you still have a lot of wiggle room as far as the salary cap, you're in a really good spot. And it's one of the reasons why you should be pumped up and stoked as an Eagles fan, because starting from the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, who's one of the best owners in the sport, down to Howie Roseman, to this coaching staff, the Eagles always go all in trying to chase a Lombardi trophy to bring that second Super Bowl championship to Philadelphia. All that being said, I do think the Eagles were disrespected by ESPN when they ranked all of the rosters for all 32 teams in the NFL. Philadelphia came in at number 10. What? Behind the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's understandable. Those two teams met in the Super Bowl back in February. You have the Baltimore Ravens at number 3. And if you want to say those are the 3 most talented rosters in the NFL, that's fine. Here's where it gets a little bit weird. New York Jets at number 4. Talk about recency bias right there. What have the Jets done in my entire lifetime? My entire existence on planet Earth? Pretty much nothing outside of back-to-back fluke AFC championship runs when Mark Sanchez was the quarterback and Rex Ryan was the head coach. Detroit Lions are stacked. Number 5 right now. I think they might be the second best team in the NFC because of the questions with Philadelphia. But you have the Dallas Cowboys at 6, the Cincinnati Bengals at 7, Houston Texans at 8, I get down with that. But the Buffalo Bills at number 9 ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles. So I have a lot of issues with those rankings. We're hyping up the Jets that much. The Cowboys have done literally nothing this offseason. They signed Ezekiel Elliott and Eric Kendricks, and they got boat raced in the wild card round by Green Bay last year. They didn't add to the team, but they're ahead of Philadelphia. That's a joke. And the national media continuing to suck off the Cowboys. It's just so fraudulent. And then the Buffalo Bills, they shed so much talent this offseason. They're going to be overly reliant on Josh Allen, and ESPN has Buffalo ahead of the Eagles. Here's what ESPN did say about this Eagles roster. Biggest strength, offensive tackle, okay. Biggest weakness, off-ball linebacker, I can see that. X factors, Darius Slay and James Bradbury, and then the newcomer to know, Anaya Smith. Either way, whether you think ESPN disrespected Philadelphia, whether you think that's justified to have the Birds at number 10, the Eagles can still make this team better, led by Roseman. And when you think about the Eagles' needs, a few players come to mind right from the jump. And full disclosure, I was in Florida over the weekend, Sarasota area, flew out of Tampa. This morning at like 6:30 a.m., I started to put together this show, and some names are really popping to mind here that we're going to talk about on today's show. And some of these players, we've talked about them at the safety spot. Outside of that, brand new list of guys who I think the Eagles could add via the trade market or the free agency market. The top free agent safeties, of course, it's led by Justin Simmons, who we've talked about plenty here on the show, Quandre Diggs, Eddie Jackson, Kareem Jackson, Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams completely washed. I think at this point, if he wants to continue his NFL career, even though he's still in his late 20s, he should try to become a hybrid linebacker. He can't cover any longer. Justin Simmons, the best player of this group. 4-time All-Pro, played under Vic Fangio. Quandre Diggs still has some really good football left in him. And then Eddie Jackson, he was a first-team All-Pro under Vic Fangio in 2018. That was a long while ago. He started to suffer from some injuries, but as a backup safety, I think that you could do worse. How about this, though? How about a young player who the Eagles could mold and trade for? And it's a player who I really like coming out of college when he was balling at Baylor, and that's Jalen Pitre of the Houston Texans. He's still only 25 years old. That second-round pick coming in 2022, really good physical player who had a lot of range at Baylor. He's a good athlete. The Texans already have Jimmy Ward, who is one of their team leaders. Then this year, they drafted Kalen Bullock in the 3rd round. So does that signify they're cooling a little bit on Pitre? And in 2024, it's being looked at as a make or break year for Jalen Pitre. His Pro Football Focus grades last year, overall grade is 61.6, a pass rush grade of 68.5, run defense grade of 67.1, but a bad coverage grade of 58.7. And that's coming in DeMeco Ryans' defense. And DeMeco Ryans has been able to elevate players within his defenses, whether it be for Houston as the head coach or with the 49ers as the team's defensive coordinator. I look at Pitre as a young, talented safety who has a lot of potential. There's a better player in there from what he's been able to put on tape. His career has gotten off to a rocky start, but at the very least, he adds to the depth at this position. If not, he can end up being a really quality starting safety for Philadelphia, even though I think that you can get by with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. If you've been enjoying our offseason coverage, plenty of different forms of content, videos coming your way every single day, long form, short form, give me a real one down below. I always enjoy our real one roll calls. Plenty more to get to here on today's show, but let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Roan. Get 20% off using the code CHATSPORTS at roan.com/chatsports. Summer is in full swing, and that's why I really like what Roan has to offer, from their golf polos to some really comfortable shorts. But also when the winter comes around, or if you need to be a little bit more formal and you can't get away with wearing a golf polo or shorts, you have the button-up that you see me wear with the long sleeve. Their pants are also awesome. I love investing in products that are high quality, that are going to last a long time, and they look good. These clothes will make you look slim. They're stretchable. They're breathable. And I always like the technology that goes into those types of products because they also don't wear down very quickly, which is why I'm willing to make that investment. And you can wear Roan gear really wherever you want, from the golf course to hosting shows here at Chat Sports to you getting some work done around the crib to you doing some yard work to you hitting the golf course, being at the office. Whatever you want, Roan has you covered. And we have you covered with a great deal. 20% off using the code ChatSports, Roan.com/ChatSports. You can even take down some Sluggies and get drunk in some Roan gear. There you go. Have some fun during the summer days. Sips is back in Philadelphia, by the way. Code ChatSports, Roan.com/ChatSports. Now let's go to the defensive end spot, to a player who has had a really, really good career. That's Yannick Ngakoue at the edge rusher position. And we were in a similar situation last year with this player. We're in July, and we're wondering a year ago, when is Yannick Ngakoue going to sign with the team? He didn't sign with the Bears until August when he inked a one-year, $10.5 million deal. And that contract did not work out for Chicago. It didn't work out for Ngakoue. He only had 4 sacks in 13 games. He was injured, and then he suffered a broken ankle in Week 14, which ended his year. And 2023 was the first time that Yannick Ngakoue did not register 8+ sacks in his 9-year career. So this is a player who's been highly productive for a long time, very consistently, and yet last year with Chicago, I think signing with the team late just resulted in a very slow start for him. But while he's not good against the run, he does have an elite trait of being able to get after the quarterback, which is obviously important in today's modern NFL when the rules kind of cater offenses and there are some really good quarterbacks. And what you need to do as a defense, hunt, because it makes your back end's job a lot easier. And this is a remade secondary. So if the Eagles can get a consistent pass rush from the edge, from defensive tackle, with some unproven and young players, it just makes your secondary's job a lot easier. And as you can see, the production for Ngakoue has been consistent. 8 sacks, 10 sacks, 9.5 sacks, and 4 over the last 4 years. And there's no question that last year was a very frustrating one for Ngakoue. And you think about the Eagles' current status at the edge rusher spot, if you will. Bryce Huff, big deal this offseason. $17 million average annual value, but his 10 sacks last year with New York on less than 50% of the snaps was the only good year of production that he's had. Nolan Smith needs to make a leap. Is he too small? Can he make that leap going into year 2? How's the shoulder going to hold up? I'm a fan of the player. I'm a fan of the motor, the twitch, the speed, the athleticism, the first step. But he barely played last year, and now you're relying on him a lot going into his sophomore campaign. Brandon Graham going into year 15, older player. Josh Sweat, is he a scheme fit for Vic Fangio's 3-4? And who is Jalix Hunt? We don't really know what he's going to be able to bring to the table because he's looked at as a raw prospect, which is where Yannick Ngakoue kind of fills in there. To the wide receiver position, Treylon Burks of the Tennessee Titans is a fascinating player. And it's a fascinating story to see what ends up happening with him because up to this point, he's been highly disappointing as a former first-round pick. But there's been a theme here for the Eagles this offseason. They have signed a lot of players, and they have taken chances on a lot of players who are former first-rounders or players who, outside of being first-rounders, have draft pedigree. Second-rounders, third-rounders, highly coveted players, and Treylon Burks could be that. This would be quite the redemption story for him. He's been disappointing since being taken 18th overall in 2022 out of Arkansas. If you were to put on his film or his highlight reel when he was playing for Arkansas, Woo Pig Suey, you'd come away very impressed with what he was able to do. He looked like the college version of Deebo Samuel, a Swiss Army knife who can line up inside, outside, jet sweeps, bubble screens, reverses, handoffs, just utilized in a variety of ways, and he was a home run threat. Anytime he had his hands on the pill, he could even take the top off of the defense. But really right from the jump from rookie minicamp, he was out of shape. I think he suffers from asthma. That didn't help matters, but he has just really struggled to impress that Titans brass. They now have a new coaching staff, so they're not tied to him, but a fascinating athlete at 6'2", 225, and I think that making a move for him would be an ideal risk to take for a wide receiver 3. And Treylon Burks at wide receiver 3, alongside Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, I think that he would fill in so nicely there, where he would get a lot of open looks, where the Eagles would be able to scheme things up for Treylon Burks. And could Howie Roseman fleece the Tennessee Titans once again for a wide receiver? He did it for A.J. Brown, and I could imagine Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni has a wide receiver background. He played that position in college, and then he coached that position at the NFL level with Kellen Moore now calling the plays, with all of the talent on that side of the ball. I think if Burks came to Philadelphia, he could figure it out. The Titans just haven't had a lot of talent on that side of the ball, and they've been reliant on Treylon Burks as a young player who maybe is a little bit immature, and he just hasn't been able to find it. You know, you look at his numbers his first 2 years, he's also been injured. 11 games played year 1, 11 games played year 2. As a rookie, 53 targets, 33 catches, 444 yards. 13.5 yards per catch ain't bad. 2 touchdowns, but then this past year, production really went down. 29 targets, only 16 catches. Year 2 as a former first-round pick is not good. 221 yards, 13.8 yards per catch, and 0 touchdowns. If you get creative with finding ways to get him the football in the manner that I said and explained a little bit earlier, I think that Treylon Burks could be a weapon on this team. And sticking with the wide receiver position, let's throw out this name, John Metchie, a very interesting player who's buried on the depth chart in Houston with the emergence of Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And then Houston traded for Stephon Diggs. So John Metchie is the wide receiver 4 at best. Imagine him being the wide receiver 3 on this team. Still only 23 years old. He was a second-round pick out of Alabama in 2022. Huge production there his last 2 years, especially in finding the end zone. And an unfortunate story, which has turned out to be a pretty positive story. He sat out as a rookie because he was diagnosed with leukemia. He came back and hasn't really been that productive just because there have been other players in front of him. And Houston kind of had to plan for the future at that position given his diagnosis. But you look at where the Texans are right now, they're in a really good spot at that wide receiver position. They have Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, as I said. But they brought back Noah Brown. They have Robert Woods. They have Ben Skowronek, who was a decent weapon for the Los Angeles Rams under Sean McVay. So I think that John Metchie could end up being a good trade target for Philadelphia. You take a chance on another player with high draft pedigree who clearly has a lot of ability and just hasn't been able to show it yet. And because of that, his value might be pretty affordable. 16 catches, 158 yards, no touchdowns, and a long of 22 last year. Seldom used, but I know that Philadelphia would be able to use him inside, outside, speed, burner, being able to do a lot of different things offensively. That's a player who I'd really, really like, and I'd probably take the shot on John Metchie over Treylon Burks. What is your biggest area of concern on this Eagles roster? ESPN's saying off-ball linebacker, safety, probably the two that come to the forefront here. Let me know down in the comments section, and make sure you give me a follow on X at Chase_Senior, approaching 13,000 followers. Help me get there. And then on Instagram, same handle there, approaching 31,000 followers. Put out a lot of short-form content there. Don't be a stranger. Say what's up, and thanks for watching. Peace.